Hi guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's video is going to be about how to properly skim read your textbooks. This was a skill that was taught to me in first year university by one of my TAs, my history TA, Lydia. She was absolutely incredible, and this was a skill that was just an absolute game changer for me. I was able to always read my books, and I was never behind on any of my readings, and I absorbed way more information than I usually did by cramming in the whole entire book, just because I was picking out only the most important stuff. And I'm going to share my tips with you guys because I really want you guys to be able to do that too, because you're really going to make the most out of your readings that way. So I have 3 tips to share with you guys today. First, I'm going to lay them out for you, and then towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use them. So our first tip is to read the first and last paragraph of every single chapter. So that's basically the intro and the conclusion. You need to read these, and it's super, super important because the intro is going to give you all of the background information that you need, and you need that background information for the rest of your reading to make sense, because if it doesn't make sense, there's no point in reading it. That's the bottom line. You need to read the introduction. You need all that background information, or else you're going to read and you're going to think to yourself, why is this relevant? I don't understand where this is coming from, okay? And the conclusion is super important because it's wrapping up the whole entire chapter for you, and it's not including any of that fluff kind of information. So there's nothing like an overkill of examples. There's no metaphors. It's just straight up fact after fact after fact, and it's only stuff that you're really going to use. And the same goes for prologues and epilogues. Always read your prologues and always read your epilogues in a book. So the intro and conclusion, just an extra note, it may not always be just the first paragraph and the last paragraph, and maybe the first 2 paragraphs and maybe the last 2 paragraphs. You really have to figure that out on your own depending on what kind of a book you're reading. So that's something that you guys have to make sure you take into consideration. There's no point reading half of the intro and half of the conclusion, right? That's exactly what I thought. Okay, and tip number 2 is to read the first 2 sentences of every single paragraph. No exception. You can't pick and choose which paragraphs you want to read, because at that point, you're just skip reading. You're not skimming anymore. You're just overlooking all kinds of information. And at that point, you might as well just be watching TV. You might as well be on the couch as opposed to sitting at your desk with a book in your hands. Okay, so the first 2 sentences are super, super important, strictly because of paragraph structure. So your first line of your paragraph is going to give you a fact. It's going to give you a piece of information. And the second line of a paragraph is going to explain that piece of information. And ultimately, that's all you need. You need your facts, and you need an explanation of the facts in order for you to understand it. That being said, if you read the first 2 sentences and it still does not make sense, you have to keep reading, unfortunately. I know it's a bit of a bummer because I'm telling you all these tips and then I'm telling you to go and keep reading. But if it doesn't make sense, you do have to keep reading. So it may take you to the 3rd sentence, it may take you to the 4th sentence, or you might have to read the whole entire paragraph. But for the most part, you'll be good at the first 2 sentences, as long as they're not vague. They're very vague. You're going to have to read the whole paragraph in order to figure everything out. And step number 3 is to look at all diagrams, all pictures, everything in your textbook. If it's there for a reason. It's not like when you're a little kid and you're reading a picture book and the pictures are there sort of just to amuse you, something for you to look at. If it's in a textbook, you really, really have to, it has to sink in. The publisher of that book probably had to pay someone all kinds of money to get that picture in the book, and as such, you have to know it. That's the bottom line. You have to know it because they wouldn't have paid all that money if it wasn't something that you need to know. And professors know that too. Your professors and your teachers are going to know, well, this is in here. They need to know it. Not to mention, it's obviously a difficult concept if you need both the text and a visual component. So if you had just the text, it's obviously simple enough for you to understand just words. If you have text that say, go see figure 2, it's leading you to this diagram because it's obviously difficult. It's something that needs to be spread out in front of you for you to get a full understanding of. Okay? And you also need to make sure that you read the captions of all of your paragraphs, not of your paragraphs, of all your pictures and your diagrams. I know a lot of people who just look at the picture and they don't read the captions at all. which is useless because it's explaining exactly what the picture is about. It's going to make it a whole lot easier to understand, and they're going to use a whole lot of words that make it easier to understand. They're going to break it down because the caption's only so big, right? So whether you read the caption or the paragraph can make a big difference because the caption is going to have a condensed amount of information, whereas the paragraph is going to spread it all out. They're going to make it long-winded. All right, so it's really important to read the captions in order to understand, especially in science textbooks. Science textbooks can get pretty difficult. There's diagrams for things like neurons and stuff like that, everything that has a whole bunch of little parts to it. So make sure that you take those into consideration and that you really, really understand them. Maybe define the words that are in the caption as well. So those are my tips. If you guys keep watching, I'm going to show you exactly how to put them into action. I have an article for you guys to read over. We're going to read through it together, and I'm going to show you exactly how to put these tips into use, so stay tuned. Okay, guys, so this is the article that I'm going to teach you guys how to skim read. It's by Sean Brotherson, called Understanding Brain Development in Young Children. I read this when I was in grade 12. It's actually a really good article. So if you guys have the opportunity to read the whole thing as opposed to skim reading it, definitely recommend you do that. But we're going to jump right in. I'm going to show you guys how to use step 1, which was read the entire intro and conclusion of every chapter. So we're going to read everything on this page. It's the first page. You can scroll down. You can see that after this it jumps straight into the article. So we need this background info that we find on this page here. So we can begin. A child's first words, grasping a spoon, babies turning their head in recognition of a mother's voice. What do these things all have in common? All of them are examples of a young child's developmental steps forward. Perhaps no aspect of child development is so miraculous and transformative as the development of a child's brain. Brain development allows a child to develop the abilities to crawl, speak, eat, laugh, and walk. Healthy development of a child's brain is built on the small moments that parents and caregivers experience as they interact with a child. Think of some recent memories when you have watched a baby or toddler. As a mother feeds her child, she gazes lovingly into his eyes. A father talks gently to his daughter as she snuggles on his lap and he reads her a book. A caregiver sings a child to sleep. These everyday moments, these simple, loving encounters provide essential nourishment. So that's a really big deal right here. Let's take this little part right here. Keep this in mind. This is the thesis. So every kind of article, every kind of book, everything you read has a thesis. It's the main point. It's going to tell you exactly what the rest of the article is about. So this is telling you that these simple, loving encounters provide essential nourishment. You guys need to keep that in mind when you're reading, or else your article is not going to make sense. You have to keep in the back of your mind that what this article is trying to tell you is different ways that the child's brain is nourished in order for it to develop properly. Okay, now we can move on. We're going to move on to our next page. So this page here actually has a little myth or fact kind of thing over here. You guys don't really have to read that. You can, but remember we're skim reading, so we want to cut out anything that we don't really need. So we're going to start here with how the brain develops. So this is step number 2. Remember, read the first and second sentence of every paragraph. A number of factors influence early brain development. These important factors include genetics, food and nutrition, responsiveness of parents, daily experiences, physical activity, and love. So see what you got in the first 2 sentences there? You got a whole lot of information. It's telling you that a bunch of things influence the development of the brain, and it's giving you a couple of examples of what things are influencing the brain. So that's all you need. You don't need to read the rest of the paragraph because it's telling you exactly what the paragraph is about. You got it in the first 2 sentences. Now you can move on to the next paragraph. In the past. Let's focus on this for a second. In the past is telling you that something has changed, right? That's what it implies. So for this one, you're going to want to read maybe more than the first 2 sentences because you need to know what is happening now. It's telling you in the past, and this is going to say that something has changed. You're going to see now. Now we know. So keep that in mind when you're reading. If you see something that says in the past, once, back then, you're going to have to read a little bit more than you thought because you're going to have to know the before and the after. So let's start here. In the past, some scientists thought the brain's development was determined genetically and brain growth followed a biologically predetermined path. There you go. You know what happened in the past. Now we know that early experiences impact the development of the brain and influence the specific way in which the circuits or pathways of the brain become wired. There we go. You got a whole bunch of information. You know what people used to think and now what we know now. So now we know that the brain becomes wired. And look, you're going to read one more sentence. A baby's brain is a work in progress. There we go. Baby's brain is a work in progress. That's something you're going to have to keep in mind just as well, right? Okay, let's keep going down here. Remember step 3, read all pictures, look at all the diagrams. We have one right here. Figure 1, neurons and connections. These are key words. It's got a diagram, it's labeled, there's only 4 of them, so keep them in mind. Maybe look them up, define them. These are probably going to be a topic of discussion later on in the classroom, so you're going to want to keep all these things in mind. I'm going to scroll down. See, throughout the article, look, we've got another diagram. Figure 2, synaptic density in the human brain. This is really important. Keep in mind this figure 2 right here. It's a label. This label is telling you that it's going to tell you somewhere in the article to go look for this. So it'll say, please see in figure 2. And then you're going to have to come here to look at this figure. This is really, really important because this is cutting down your reading time because it's going to tell you where to find this in the article. So you're going to see figure 2. You're going to look up. Do you see anywhere here? Do you see the words figure 2 anywhere? See figure 2 as seen in figure 2? Nowhere. Let's scroll down. Do we see it anywhere here? Figure 2 as seen in figure 2? Right here. Can be seen in figure 2. So this is important because it's telling you that the information regarding this diagram over here, this figure 2, is going to be found somewhere in these paragraphs. Somewhere over here, you're going to find that information, which is cutting down your reading time because you know you don't have to read this. You know that you don't have to read up here in order to understand this diagram over here. So that's just another trick to cut down your reading time. And so I'm just scrolling here just to save time, but you should be reading the first sentences of all of these things. See, emotional and social development, first sentence. The prime time for emotional and social development in children is birth to 12 years of age. There you go, important information. Do you really need to know more about that? You could keep reading, but remember we're skim reading. Once you have this point in your mind, this is going to be a topic of discussion. So when you're in class, you're going to know this, and then you can discuss with other people who may or may not have read the rest of the article. So they're going to know what's in there. You don't have to know per se, but it's good to keep these things in mind. Right? Now we have our conclusion. Remember back to rule number 1, you're always going to read the intro, you're always going to read the entire conclusion. And look, it's not even that long. If you don't have time to read this little bit, you need to better prioritize your time. So let's start with our conclusion. The development of a child's brain holds the key to the child's future. Although the first years last forever in terms of the rapid development of young children's brains, the actual first years of a child's life go by very quickly. So touch, talk, read, smile, sing, count, and play with your children. It does more than make the both of you feel good. It helps the child's brain develop and nourishes the child's potential for a lifetime. Alright, so do you guys see what's going on in the conclusion? Basically, every sentence in the entire conclusion is like the first sentence of each paragraph. It's summing everything up. It's got all the information that you need. It's breaking it down. It's nice and simple. It doesn't have all the examples. It doesn't have a lot of metaphors in there. Nothing like that like in the rest of the article. In the conclusion, it's all bam, bam, bam. Straightforward, gives you all of the information you need. So I hope that helps you guys out, and good luck dissecting the rest of your articles. Right, so there you have it. That's how you skim read an article. I hope this information helped you guys out a lot and that you guys have a much easier time reading your textbooks this year than you previously have. If you guys have any other suggestions for videos, any other things you'd like some tips on, be sure that you leave them in the comments and I'd be more than happy to make a video for you guys. So you guys have a good day, take care, and good luck getting your A's.